Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies You Miss Podcast, episode 64. V, how you doing?
I'm doing very well and very much looking forward to our Emma Stone discussion this week.
Absolutely, two Emma Stone feature films that we are both big fans of. Actually, I have been both fans of both of them. V, you just saw one of them this time around.
That's right, you introduced me to your movie this week.
I did, and I can't wait to get into that discussion. But before we get into that, V, have you seen anything new this week?
I sure as hell did. I went and saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Ooh, you went to a movie before me.
Yes, getting back on the horse in the saddle and with the putting on the fedora and getting to the movies ahead of you. I mean, I was smugly satisfied about that.
There are first times for everything, ladies and gentlemen, and this is one of the first.
Apparently. But I can happily report that I really enjoyed the movie. I gave it a solid B+.
Oh, wonderful.
I thought it was great. I thought the action was really fun. The storyline definitely did the previous movies justice.
Oh, wonderful.
You can't go wrong with Indiana Jones versus Nazis.
Oh, definitely not.
And you throw in Mads Mikkelsen on top of that, you got a great movie.
Oh, I had no idea he was in it. Spoiler alert, everybody!
He's in the trailer.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Not a spoiler
alert. I don't remember the trailer. I'm going to be honest. I think I only saw like one trailer last summer, and I never saw another one.
Okay.
So that's very cool.
So yes, there are a lot of mixed reviews of it, similar to The Flash, I guess. And I've noticed a lot of negativity with new movies coming out this year, more so than last year.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah, right? And so I really enjoyed it. I think the thing that I was a bit disappointed with was just how much CGI was in the film.
Oh, interesting.
Not the scenes with de-aging Harrison. Those were great flashback scenes and a whole lot of fun.
Okay.
But just some of the action sequences, even if they had younger people, not Harrison Ford in the scene, there was a lot of CGI. And, I'm getting ready for Mission Impossible next week, and there's so much practicality in Tom Cruise's movies that I couldn't help but compare them and be like, damn it, it's possible to do practical stunts.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's my only complaint, but otherwise, I had a lot of fun. I know that there's been a lot of mixed reviews, which is fine, and some people haven't liked the movie, but I sure as hell had a lot of fun, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great way to end the series, and I certainly recommend it to anyone who's interested.
Awesome. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it, especially in the theaters, because that's how you got to see Indiana Jones.
I think so, too, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it.
I can't wait. What do you say we get into our Emma Stone picks for this week? V, what do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Fantastic, and I believe, V, you start us off.
That is also correct.
I can't wait.
I picked my all-time favorite Emma Stone movie. It is also one of my favorite teen comedies. It is a fantastically written and acted film. This is from the year 2010. It is called Easy A.
What a great movie this is, and I can't wait to get into it either.
Yes, it is a great movie. I'm so glad you're a fan of it. I believe you watched your wife's DVD copy, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I did, and that has only happened very seldom here at Movies You Miss Podcast, where my wife actually owns the DVD or Blu-ray of said movie that we're discussing. And oddly enough, my wife owns the DVD copy of V's pick this week. It is fucking awesome, and I can't wait to hear more about it. V, break it down for us.
I certainly will. So to start us off, the plot is very just loosely has a whiff of an inspiration from a book called The Scarlet Letter.
Smells good.
And The Scarlet Letter is about a woman named Hester Prynne who had an affair with the local minister, and this is back in the day, and gets shamed by the whole community, etc., etc. And so this young woman, played by Emma Stone, named Olive Pendergast, is not a popular person at school. She's a bit of a wallflower. People pass her by. Nobody ever really talks about her. And she's just hanging out with her best friend named Rihanna. And
yeah, Rihanna. There's a Fleetwood Mac song, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, and she is actually named after the Fleetwood Mac song because her parents, who are super hippies, would have loved Fleetwood Mac, and so the writer of the movie was like, "Oh yeah, they'd name their daughter after a Fleetwood Mac song. Perfect."
It makes complete sense.
It really does.
Absolutely. Especially after you meet Rihanna's parents.
Exactly. They are, as I said, hippies. This movie takes place in present day in Ojai, California, which is a small yuppie town outside of the Los Angeles area.
Yes. I would say like 55 miles north of Los Angeles, right outside of Ventura County, where I was born, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. And it's full of people who drive Subarus or Mercedes and wear lots of Patagonia. I think that's the perfect description, right?
But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so Olive Pendergast is talking to her best friend Rhiannon, who has invited her on a camping trip that weekend with Rhiannon's parents. And there's a flashback to when Olive went to Rhiannon's house for dinner, and her parents are outside, naked, cooked veggie burgers from their victory garden.
Oh, this was the worst. Patchouli burgers.
That's right, they were patchouli burgers.
So ridiculous.
Yes.
Absolutely insane.
And the dad's like, dessert? And he passes her a bong.
Which that is the best dessert.
One of the things that I love about this movie is it's told in the first person. Olive talks to the camera throughout the movie, and there's her voiceover throughout the movie as well, and she's telling us her story.
Yeah.
And we understand that this is a little bit of a flashback setting up what is happening with Olive's life. And so she's telling us about Rhiannon's parents and that they're just the weirdest people she's ever met. So she's trying to get out of this camping trip. And so instead she tells Rhiannon, look, I have a date. My brother who's in college set me up with a guy from his class. I have a date with this guy named George. And she's like making all this bullshit up on the spot, right? And so on Monday morning when school rolls around and she has blessedly missed out on the camping trip, Rhiannon's like, hey, how was your date? And Olive's like, oh, it was a fine weekend. And her friend's like, what? A whole entire weekend? Oh my God, did you? And Olive's like, no, of course not. But unfortunately, Rhiannon is very loudmouth, crass, pushy friend of Olive's.
Oh, yeah.
And she really corners Olive and is like, come on, you did it. Tell me, you turned in your V card and all this stuff. And Olive finally relents and is like, yeah, okay, it happened. I did. It was fine. And of course, we flash back to Olive's real weekend, which is her just hanging out in her house. And her grandma had given her this card. And I remember back in the day, they might still make them where you'd open the card and a song played.
Yes,
and it's Natasha Bedingfield's Pocket Full of Sunshine. And I love how it's like Friday night, she opens this card and she goes like, ugh, worst song ever. And then throughout the weekend, she just keeps opening the card. And then by the end of Sunday, she's like belting it out in her room. Oh, yeah. And it's so classic.
So good.
And so in reality, Olive's just making this up. She did not go on a date. She did not, lose her virginity to this guy in college, but Rhiannon had kind of pushed her and she's like, fine, I did, whatever. And unfortunately in this universe of high school, that's a really, really big deal and very scandalous. And unfortunately, the school Christian, I guess is a good way to put it, Christian leader, Marianne, played by Amanda Bynes.
Who had to be completely taken from Mandy Moore's Christian overbearingness from Saved, right?
Thank you, yes.
To an extent, it had to have been.
Absolutely, because that's what I was going to reference as well.
Oh, wonderful.
That is an echo of that for sure. It's the first person I thought of too, which is great. That is a movie you vetoed on this podcast.
I did veto Saved, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, because that movie did not hold up at all. But Mandy Moore, good golly, did she hold up forever?
And so, unfortunately, Amanda Bynes in Easy A is overhearing what Olive is saying. And of course, since she's the Christian leader at school, she really is upset about it. She comes out of the bathroom stall. Rihanna's like, what are you looking at? And Marianne goes, just two admitted whores.
Oh, yeah. And she's so caked on with the makeup and her hair is so completely evangelist Christian fucking broadcast horse shit. You're just like, wow.
Yes.
And all my wife said during this time of watching ECA was like, oh, poor Amanda Bynes. Why'd she have to go off the deep end?
She did, and unfortunately, this was her last ever movie. She quit acting after this movie, unfortunately.
She was so great. She really is great. I want her to come back. I want a resurgence of Amanda Bynes.
I do too. Right there with you. And so the school, as we all know from high school, News travels fast. Everybody's now talking about Olive and the fact that she lost her virginity. And she starts getting some grief from other students. Because of that, she ends up in detention. She finds her friend Brandon in detention too and goes, hey, you know, what's going on? Why are you in detention? He said, oh, well, I got in a fight with one of my classmates who's a total homophobe, and he punched me.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Brandon's gay and is getting really bullied. And so Olive says to Brandon, well, why don't you just pretend to be straight to get through high school? He's like, oh, like you pretended to lose your virginity? And she's like, exactly. And so he comes over to her house later on that day and is like, hey, can you pretend to date me? And after some convincing, she's like, fine, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do it right. There's a party this weekend. We're going to go to it. We're going to pretend to be a couple. And so you're going to stop getting bullied. And so what they do is they go to this party and go into one of the bedrooms and then pretend to have sex by jumping on the bed and making tons of noises, which is a hilarious scene. Thankfully, it helps Brandon not be bullied. Unfortunately, Brandon then tells a couple of his guy friends what Olive did for him, and it turns into all of these unpopular guys who are all made fun of and getting bullied, paying Olive to pretend to go out with them. And she doesn't do anything with them. It's just that they say that they did something with her, and so she
corroborates their
stories, exactly. And so unfortunately because the woman is always shamed for doing stuff like this, and the men never are.
Oh, of course. Yes.
She starts getting a really horrible reputation at school. Bad things start happening, including her friendship with Rhiannon starts to deteriorate. It really snowballs, unfortunately, and this is the story about all of that happening and Olive trying to really navigate through all of these problems that have been created by the first lie that she told.
I like that because, you know, to an extent throughout your high school career, you always wanted something to go a different way than what actually happened, right?
Like the whole entire high school experience? Yes.
Oh, yeah, pretty much, yes. Yeah. Especially my senior year. I don't even want to get into that horrendousness, but high school upon high school is just not something that anybody really wants to relive.
No, and I'm very glad that I escaped that place.
Same.
And what makes this movie fantastic is all of the supporting cast in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Olive's parents are something to be witnessed.
What a way to convey them.
Right? Because they are played wonderfully by Patricia Clarkson and Stanley Tucci.
Oh, yes.
Stanley being, as some of our listeners know, one of my all-time favorite actors.
He is up there with just about anybody on the planet.
So yes, he plays her dad, and God, every scene with her parents is my favorite scene in the movie, honestly. And the first time we meet them is after Olive has gotten put in detention, and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know I got sent to the principal's office today. And her mom goes, ooh, did you get an award? Because we're learning that Olive is actually a really good kid. She's never in trouble. You know, again, she's a bit of a wallflower. Like she just skates by and doesn't ever cause any big ripples, and so they don't expect her to be doing any of these things. And I just love that whole entire scene.
You guys know that I was here all weekend, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you were upstairs.
Yeah.
You would testify to that?
Yeah.
I would take a bullet for you. You know that. Right between the eyes. I mean, I would slit my throat rather than say something to someone that you didn't want me to say.
That's not necessary, Dad, but that is comforting.
That's how I am. That's how I roll. That's how I do, as they say.
I like the pants.
Thank you. They're Costco. You can have them when you get a little taller if you want.
I'm never gonna go through puberty.
Of course you will, baby. But we're a family of late bloomers. I didn't until I was 14, nor did Olive.
Why does that matter? I'm adopted.
What? Oh my God! Who told you?
Guys, we were gonna do this at the right time. Listen to me. Sometimes, even when a man and a woman love each other very much, like your mother and I used to, their insides just don't cooperate with each other.
So what's going on, honey? Why do you want us to take a bullet if anyone asked if you were here all weekend?
It's nothing. It's just the rumor mill.
What's the rumor mill churning out these days? Anything interesting?
You know, not really. Not really. It's a little low on grist.
Oh, clever wordplay. I like it very much. You must be related to me.
Only by marriage.
It is definitely great, especially how often can you be a teenager and have your parents completely support what you're doing in any regard?
Right?
So it was really awesome to see Tucci and Patricia Clarkson as these completely open-minded yet textbook strange parents. You know, like these are the kind of parents that you really only read about in like Alice in Wonderland chapter 32. You know, it's like, where are these people coming from? Is it coming from experience? Is it coming from whatever? And you find out later, of course, it's actually coming from experience from both of their sides of the spectrum. And I really liked that.
That's my favorite part of the movie, their relationship.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's so enlightened. They're so they just make themselves so approachable for their children.
Very, very approachable.
While at the same time using a lot of humor.
Yes.
Which
there's nothing but laughs when they're on screen.
Oh, my God. Every single scene with them is hilarious. And
hell yeah.
my other favorite scene with them is, as you said, getting a little bit further along in the movie when Olive starts to really embody and kind of fight back against all of these rumors. And what she starts doing is kind of dressing a bit more scandalous to call all these people out. And oh man, and there's a scene with her parents that is just absolute gold that actually my sister and I quote to each other a lot of times. Whenever we ask each other, like, oh, how do I look? Or, you know, what do you think about this shirt or this, you know, skirt or something? And we use this line quite often. It's very fun and a good reminder of this movie.
Not to mention how you've been dressing the last few days. No judgment, but you kind of look like a stripper.
Mom?
A high-end stripper for governors or athletes.
I love that. And it's definitely entertaining because the relationship between her and her parents really is as open as a book, and it's great because there's that trust and that love and that family bubble there that, you know, a lot of movies like this do not incorporate. In Superbad, same with Pineapple Express, same with American Pie, and all these high school movies, Booksmart. You don't have these parental figures in this movie to steer them a certain direction. So they're going, you know, based off of their own intuition, which is another reason why most of these movies work and are so hilarious, which is why also Easy A kind of works because Olive goes in her own direction. She couldn't give two shits. And that's one thing I really liked about her. She's a strong female character, and we love strong female characters here at Movies You Missed. And Easy A came into my life when my wife moved in with me. A buddy of mine is in it in the opening 5 minutes of this movie. A friend of mine did the DIT on this movie. He was a digital imaging technician. And then another friend of mine did hair and makeup on this movie. So I have some insight on this movie. Now, I was born in Ventura, which is literally right outside of Ojai, California.
I love that you know people who've worked on this movie. I hope they had a great experience because of how joyous this movie is. I hope behind the scenes was just as pleasurable.
I have talked to my buddy John Mills. He was, like I said, DIT. He said it was a pretty fun show. He did have to drive quite a bit of ways to get to Ojai from Los Angeles. And if anybody lives in Los Angeles, you know. And Tracy was head hair and makeup, so she did the same thing. They love the movie, and I also do too. And I just love that I have some friends that have been on it. My buddy CJ, that was in the opening credits, he was background, but he was still a high school, quote-unquote, student. And he said that he had a great time in the day that he was there. He got his own trailer, and everybody was very nice. He met Emma Stone. He said that she was the sweetest thing on the planet. And that's great, you know, minus the fact that she was in La La Land. She's still fantastic.
Yes, she's in a lot of great movies, and I'll get into that in just a minute. The last thing I do want to say about this movie is that there is a random musical number.
Yeah, there is.
And not only does she call it out that there is random and unnecessary musical number, but it's also one of my dreams. I would love to have a random musical number in my life at some point.
Would you really?
Oh, hell yeah.
We'll have to figure something out like that then.
So, as I mentioned, the cast of this movie is fantastic. I wouldn't go so far as saying it's a stacked cast, but is full of very talented people who really round this movie out super well and make this movie from being an average teen comedy to an exceptional teen comedy.
Definitely.
And of course, to start that off would be Emma Stone. Beyond La La Land, she has also been in Crazy Stupid Love with Ryan Gosling.
Pretty good movie.
It is. The reveal scene at the end is one of my all-time favorite reveals in all of movies. She's also in The Help. And
oh, yeah.
Emma Stone is also in the Amazing Spider-Man movies with her former beau, Andrew Garfield.
Oh, that's right. She's Gwen Stacy.
She is Gwen Stacy in both of those movies.
I gotta watch those ones. I really need to. I love me some Andrew Garfield, as this audience knows.
Me too, yes.
Yes.
The first one's really good. The second one...
That's all I've heard.
...wasn't great, but I was really... he just gets way too much hate. I thought he did a great job as Peter Parker.
All right. I definitely want to give it a shot.
Emma Stone was also in the Zombieland movies.
Yes, she was. I was not a big fan of Double Tap, but I did like the first Zombieland quite a bit.
I liked Double Tap. It was just a little bit forgettable for me, but I did enjoy it when I watched it.
I felt like it was unnecessary.
That's true for a lot of sequels.
Yeah, and I've worked with Ruben Fleischer before. He directed the first Zombieland and the sequel, and majority of the Scrubs sitcom with Zach Braff and Donald Faison. He's a good dude. I liked him a lot. I just did not understand why we needed another Zombieland, but that's okay. I still saw it.
Because Hollywood likes making money?
Well, of course. And Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg did survive the first Zombieland.
Yeah, and they like
so
making
why not give us
sequels
a
too.
sequel?
Exactly.
And so did Emma Stone.
Amanda Bynes, as I mentioned, is in this movie.
Yeah.
She's also in Hairspray and a movie you and I are both big fans of, She's the Man.
Oh, yeah, She's the Man's very entertaining movie.
It really is.
Yes.
I should put it on the list at some point, but I have to check if it holds up. Penn Badgley plays, and his credit literally is Woodchuck Todd in this movie.
Is that it, really?
Yeah. I saw it in the
terrible.
credits this time. It's great. And he's credited as Woodchuck Todd because he's the school mascot in this movie, which is he is so adorable in this movie. Just a wonderful teenage love interest. And most people would recognize him from the show Gossip Girl. He plays Dan Humphrey. And more recently in the Netflix series You, which is the polar opposite of his other characters that he's played.
A lot of people like that show, You. I've never seen You.
I haven't either, but there are a couple people that have told me they're big fans of it. Cam Gianday, I hope I'm saying his last name right, plays a high schooler in this movie. He plays like a fourth-year senior in this movie. He was in the Twilight movie. He played James in the first Twilight movie.
Never saw it.
That's okay. He's also in a movie that came out recently that is going to be on our list in December called Violent Night.
Oh.
And he was also in the remake of Magnificent Seven. He plays a bad guy.
Ah, yes. That has been on my list of movies to watch, and I have not gotten to it yet.
It's a pretty good remake.
I would like to see it. Antoine Fuqua directed, Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke together.
Mm-hmm. Ali Michalka plays Rhiannon, Olive's best friend. She is really well known for being half of the sister musical group Ali and AJ.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, I know about them. Yeah.
So do I. So she's actually more famous for being a singer.
Very cool.
Yeah, and Thomas Hayden Church plays Olive's favorite teacher in this movie. He's so sweet in this movie. I love him. And actually, he was also in a Spider-Man movie. He was in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and the Tom Holland Spider-Man because he plays Sandman in Spider-Man 3 and then reprises that role in Spider-Man No Way Home. And, of course, Thomas Hayden Church was also in Sideways.
Yes!
He plays...
Oscar nomination.
That's right. He plays Billy in Tombstone.
Oh, yeah! Oh, my gosh, that's right. He was one of the who's in Tombstone.
He was. He's the one who pulls out the knife and also talks to Doc Holliday when he is playing piano. And he goes, it's the drunk piano player. You're so drunk, you're probably seeing double.
Well, I brought 2 guns, one for each of you.
Exactly.
Yeah!
He also was in the show Wings. He has an uncredited part in Monkey Bone.
Yes, he does! Oh, my God, V, you mentioned Monkey Bone. I didn't think you ever would do it. I did not think you ever would bring that movie to the forefront, especially on your pick.
Begrudgingly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But he was so good in it, wasn't he? He was so funny.
He was.
He was so funny.
He was. That was a good part of the movie. Patricia Clarkson plays Olive's mom, and she's been in The Green Mile. She plays Tom Hanks' wife.
Oh.
We mentioned her in Shutter Island, my pick, a couple months ago. She's also in Friends with Benefits. She's also in Good Night and Good Luck.
Yes, that is a good movie.
She's in Jumanji. She plays his mom, Carol Parrish. Alan Parrish's mom in the original Jumanji.
No way.
Yeah, she's not in it for very long, but I do remember that movie well because I love it.
Oh, a classic 90s movie.
It is, and she's also in a Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry movie titled The
Hey.
Deadpool that's on my list.
Oh, the Deadpool, eh?
Yeah.
Well.
And
Get that in front of me.
it's so good. You're gonna like it, I think.
We'll see.
I can say the same for Stanley Tucci.
Hell yeah.
He was in a very early pick of mine, Lucky Number 11.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and I love any opportunity to bring up Lucky Number 11 because that is a
Oh, hell yeah.
fantastic underrated movie. He, of course, is also in The Hunger Games. He's also in Julie and Julia, the
Yes.
live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, he is.
He plays the scientist in Captain America, the first one.
Really?
Yeah, and he takes a terrifying turn in The Lovely Bones.
Oh my God. I watched it because it was Peter Jackson. Tucci stole the show
Oh, 100%.
in The Lovely Bones, especially with that hair style and the glasses. Oh
Pervy
my
glasses.
gosh. Totally. Tucci, if ever you deserved an Oscar nomination,
Oh,
supporting actor
hell yeah.
for Lovely Bones, in my opinion, most definitely.
Most definitely. A couple other notable people who make great appearances in this movie. Lisa Kudrow. Of course, she's
Hell yeah.
Phoebe from Friends. She plays the school guidance counselor.
I always liked Lisa Kudrow, and I really enjoyed her in this movie, too.
She's a great actress. I love her.
Very much.
And Fred Armisen is in this movie, too.
He is! I completely forgot about him. When he shows up, I was like, oh, yeah.
Will Gluck directed this movie. He also has directed Friends with Benefits, the
No way!
Mila Kunis, Justin Timberlake movie,
Fantastic.
the Annie remake, and the
Oh.
Peter Rabbit movies, most recently. Yeah.
My wife likes the Peter Rabbit movies. If anybody other than James Corden was the voice of Peter Rabbit, I might have enjoyed it more.
Right.
Yeah.
A couple of great behind-the-scenes bits about this movie. Emma Stone's audition was actually her opening webcam scene, which is great.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And she actually completed all of the webcam and narration scenes in one day.
No way.
She did a 14-hour day sitting and staring at the webcam, doing all of
Wow.
those scenes, and got it all done.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and she actually dropped out of the movie Sucker Punch to do this one.
No way.
Yeah, which is cool.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah. And Olive's family is all named after food, which I never realized. So her dad is named Dill.
No way.
They refer to her mom Rose because her name's Rosemary. Her younger brother, who's adopted, is named Chip.
What?
And her older brother is named Kale.
Wow. I did not pick any of that up watching this movie.
And during the fake sex scene that she does with Brandon, Emma Stone had an asthma attack during filming.
No.
Yeah.
They have to bring in the inhaler
Uh-huh.
every couple scenes,
Exactly.
every couple takes.
Because
That's
they were
hilarious.
jumping on the bed too vigorously, apparently.
Wow.
And the foreign film that Olive goes to see in this movie is called Der Scharlachrote Buchstabe. And it's a German film. It's The Scarlet Letter.
Yes, I like that
the
little nod to the entire movie.
Yes, it's the 1973 German version of The Scarlet Letter.
Too good. And I love that she has that A put on her shoulder at one point in the movie.
Yes, me too. And originally this was a rated R film. It had a bunch of curse words in it.
This was R-rated originally?
Originally, yeah.
Oh, I would have loved. Okay, where is the director's cut?
I know,
Give us
right?
that R-rated Easy A. I want it now.
Exactly. Unfortunately, they cut just about all of the curse words out. But they did keep one in, which is British slang, which is what Olive gets in trouble for at the beginning of this movie. They kept in the word twat.
Yes.
And so in the UK, this film was rated 15 instead of PG-13.
Oh, wow. Just because of that moment?
Yes.
Even though every child hears the word twat throughout the UK in their entire lives?
Exactly. And lastly, I wanted to share that the screenplay for this film was featured in the 2008 Blacklist.
Was it really?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Well deserved.
Definitely. Hell yeah.
And I'm glad that they made it 2 years later.
And V, why don't you explain to our audience what the blacklist screenplay situation means? I know we've mentioned it a few times here.
That's right, and I'd be happy to. So the blacklist is the list of scripts in Hollywood that are the most liked scripts of the year, but haven't been made yet or haven't been picked up yet.
Yes. I'm really glad this movie actually finally did get made, because the blacklist has some of the best scripts that we've actually discussed on this podcast at this point.
It really does. I think you're right. And that's Easy A, and you can watch it right now if you have a Netflix subscription.
Oh, fantastic. Definitely glad you chose it this week, V. A very entertaining film. I've only seen it like 4 or 5 different times, and I love watching this movie.
That's right, and I'm so glad you like it. I'm a huge fan of it too, and hopefully some people in our audience are now interested in giving it a watch.
I hope so.
So I think it's time to move over and discuss the second Emma Stone pick of the week with your movie.
Yes, indeed. I'm quite excited to do this because I know, V, you hadn't seen this movie before. I've seen this movie many times. I own the Blu-ray, like I had mentioned last week. And for those that follow along here at Movies You Miss Podcast as a listener, you'll know that I'm talking about the 2014 feature film Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And we've come to the conclusion that I like long-titled films here at Movies You Miss Podcast.
Yes.
So it is definitely a mouthful. This movie is written by Alejandro Iñárritu. This is also written by 3 other writers: Alexander Dinelaris, Armando Bo, and Nicholas G. Acambone. And now, please forgive me if I have pronounced those names incorrectly. I just found out this recently, too, that this film is written by those 4 gentlemen, and 3 of them are not WGA members. So
Whoa.
this movie actually did not get a WGA nomination for screenplay because of that reason alone. But we'll get into more of the nominations and whatnot later on. This film stars Michael Keaton, Naomi Watts, Edward Norton, Emma Stone, Zach Galifianakis, and Andrea Riseborough. This film is beyond technically fantastic, just an all-around phenomenal piece of cinematic achievement, in my personal opinion. This movie actually was the first film that my wife and I saw in the theaters together in November of 2014. So Birdman is set around Regan Thompson. Regan Thompson, played by Michael Keaton. In a way, this is one of those kind of meta movies, you know, where the lead actor is kind of playing a version of himself, and everybody else on the screen is playing an exaggerated version of themselves, or a satirical version of themselves. It's been on record that Edward Norton is very much like his character Mike Shiner in this movie in particular. So Regan is somewhat of a fading star at this point. He's starting to kind of just fade away into obscurity, but he really doesn't want that to happen. He's got that ego, you know, he's got that whole, like, I want to be remembered bit going on. He is wanting to revive a play that hasn't been seen or heard of in decades. It's called What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver. And Regan is writing the adaptation, he's producing it, he's directing it, and he's also starring in it. He's got a young daughter played by Emma Stone. Her name is Sam. She plays his assistant. She is a little bit disconnected, but we find out she's back from rehab, and she's basically trying to go straight, you know, be straight edge and not get back into the drugs and the alcohol and whatnot. And Regan is having a lot of trouble early on in this production of his play because he has this actor that he just can't seem to get through to. He basically is telling his producer, who is played by Zach Galifianakis, that he really just needs this guy off this play. One thing leads to another, and lo and behold, this guy is now off the play. Regan's alter ego is basically Birdman from these comic book movies, and talking him up and talking him down as like an inner monologue. And, you know, I kind of liked a lot of that, because who doesn't talk to themselves literally every second of every day?
You know what's funny? I actually read an article recently saying that there are a percentage of people who don't have an internal monologue.
I've heard that. I don't understand that.
Me either. And I'm like, well, what do you do all day?
Yeah, what happens once you disagree with somebody? You just move on, like, oh, okay, yeah, I disagree. And, like, it's just...
You don't
in
obsess
your
over
head.
it all the time like we
Right,
do?
yeah, you don't overthink it and overanalyze and everything like that. So Regan is now trying to find an actor to fill this role, and he needs somebody. He wants a star power beyond himself, because he's Regan Thompson. And Regan is just firing off these names to Jake, who is played by Zach Galifianakis, and we find out they're best friends. They've been together for years. He's also his producer, partner, kind of in a way. You know, Regan treats this guy like shit, and at the same time, he's there for him, and we've all been there, you know, one way or another. We want to help somebody realize something, and, you know, regardless of how shitty they are to us in that process, the project at hand, and in the end always is something that you can look back on and be very proud of. And that's what Regan is really hoping to get going with this play of his. So he names off Woody Harrelson, and Jake's like, no, he's doing the new Hunger Games. And he goes, how about Jeremy Renner? And Jake's like, who? And he goes, the Hurt Locker guy. He goes, oh, he's doing the next Avengers movie. And Regan goes, God damn it, they put him in a cape too? So like everybody that he's firing off for the star power is now in a cape, in a Marvel movie, in a franchise movie, just like Regan was way back in the day. And we find out that he actually stopped doing these movies in 1992. Vee, I wonder what other movie Michael Keaton stopped doing in 1992.
I'm Batman.
Exactly. And what's funny is that was the last time that Michael Keaton played Batman, until just very recently when The Flash came out.
That's right, which we saw recently.
Indeed. Great movie. At one point or another, we find out that this very prominent Broadway actor, Mike Shiner, is available. Regan says, is this a good thing? Can we sell tickets? And Jake says, ask me how many tickets this guy sells. He goes, how many tickets does he sell? He goes, a shit ton of tickets. Ask me if critics love him. Do critics love him? They want to spooge on him, like stuff like that. So he's the golden angel of Broadway. And we come to find out that Mike Shiner's played by Edward Norton. Edward Norton comes in and starts breaking down the script. And apparently he also did that when meeting Inarritu early on in pre-production of this movie. He started breaking down a lot of the scenes, and Inarritu said to him, well, you're basically playing now a character of yourself because I have a scene like this exactly in the movie. And Vee, I'm sure you noticed this movie is essentially a one long take. So we're kind of watching a stage play happen in cinematic form, and done so very brilliantly, and actually done majority practically, having shot this movie on location on Broadway in New York City at the St. James Theater. 90% of it was shot in this theater on Broadway, which I thought was pretty badass.
Yes, and I love that this is a single-shot movie. It just added to the intensity of the movie, to Regan's stress levels throughout the entire movie. Oh, yeah,
definitely. And
it just felt very in your face. Inarritu, of course, did something similar to that in the beginning of The Revenant, which was really amazing. But he hadn't done a whole movie like this. And, we've talked about single takes in Atomic Blonde when we were talking about one of the action scenes. And you and I are both big fans of that style. So I think that really, for me personally, added to the movie for me.
Nice.
And that's something that's just one of those little pieces of a film that people can kind of connect with. And a lot of films that people like have this like little thing that they're like, oh yeah, but it has this, so I'm really happy about it. And single shot style is certainly something that you and I really connect with and get really excited by. So that certainly was, again, like I said, something that helped me be a big fan of this movie.
And I will always remember when I sat down in the theater and this movie began, and at one point in watching this movie in the theater, I grabbed Amy's arm, and I just started shaking my head and kind of going like, and she leaned over, she goes, what's the matter? I'm like, there hasn't been a cut yet.
Yeah.
There has not been a single edit. And then I noticed that Regan is sitting in front of the mirror in his dressing room, and the camera comes around the back of him, and we see his reflection, and we don't see the fucking camera.
I love those tricks.
I completely was blown away, and from that moment on, I really was glued. And so throughout the rest of this movie, we watch Regan and Mike Shiner clash, because Regan is of the Hollywood type and Mike Shiner is of the Broadway type, and they both look at each other like they're out of their fucking minds, and they're both wrong, but they have a mutual respect for each other at the same time. And that's one thing that I really liked about their dynamic. And one of my favorite scenes, I'm sure Vee, you might even know what it is after an article comes out for, that Mike Shiner was interviewed for. He's on the front page. And early on, Regan tells Shiner that the reason he became an actor was because of Carver. And then the next day, this news article drops, and Shiner has just said that he's now an actor because Raymond Carver was an inspiration to him. And I love the sequence when Regan goes to confront him, because Shiner is in his dressing room in a tanning bed, and Regan comes in and starts swatting him with the newspaper article, which I thought was hilarious. And they start chasing each other through the backstage of this theater, and then at one point they start beating the shit out of each other. And I love it because there's one moment where the camera kind of pans away and we see some stagehands just watching them, and nobody really gets in to break up the fight. And you can tell that Regan kind of has the upper hand, but they're both very uncoordinated when it comes to actually trying to have a fight with each other, that it just cracks me up.
And the funny thing is, I actually think that Mike is a bit of an example of a method actor because he gets so mad about the gin being just water and not real gin. And
yeah.
He does a lot of really terrible things throughout the movie for his quote-unquote craft.
Right.
He's so into it. And I thought it was just a great example of method acting and how when actors take that to an extreme, it really affects the entire set. It really affects the entire cast and crew. And it's super selfish and fucked up.
It definitely can be, and especially in this movie in particular, Shiner definitely pulls some strings that he definitely should not be pulling.
No.
And we find out that, of course, Regan's going to need some killer reviews for this to actually continue playing for more than just a night. And he crossed paths with one of the more brutal critics of the Broadway scene, and she's actually played very magnificently by a very wonderful British actress. Her name is Lindsay Duncan. She plays Tabby, and they have one of my favorite scenes together in this movie. I mean, like I said, it is a one take, so it's kind of hard to be like, that scene is great, which is really, really cool because I read that the fact that this is shot the way it is, and they actually shot it in sequence. None of this was shot out of sequence. And another thing that kind of blew me away is if you really pay attention, you can notice that there's actually 16 visible cuts on screen. The transitions are great enough, going in and out of a door from, the theater out into Times Square or going into the bar from outside. They're going through a dark section of the bar or whatnot, and of course that's where the edit lies. But, you don't think about that because you're so immersed in what's going on screen between these people that you really are you're literally along for the ride. So Lindsay Duncan, she has been in several movies. She's in one of my favorite films, and I think, V, you also love this movie. She plays the mum in About Time. She's Domhnall Gleeson's mother.
Yes.
Just a wonderful, wonderful movie. So the scene that Regan and Tabby have together is about how Regan is really just kind of giving Tabby a little bit of background as to why he's putting this play on. Raymond Carver sent him a cocktail napkin when he was doing a play in high school. It said, "Thank you for an honest performance." Tabitha's not about it. She just keeps telling him, I'm going to kill your play. And he's like, "Did I do something to offend you?" And she goes, "As a matter of fact, you did." And this sequence and this moment in this movie, not seen, because again, this is a one-taker, this moment is just powerful on both ends. And if you haven't seen the movie, just listen to this.
Just, before you come tomorrow.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm going to destroy your play.
But you didn't even see it. Did I do something to offend you?
As a matter of fact, you did. You took up space in a theater which otherwise might have been used on something worthwhile.
Okay, well, you don't even know if it's any good or not. I didn't...
That's true. I haven't read a word of it or even seen a preview. But after the opening tomorrow, I'm going to turn in the worst review anybody has ever read. And I'm going to close your play. Would you like to know why? Because I hate you and everyone you represent. Entitled, selfish, spoiled children. Blissfully untrained, unversed, and unprepared to even attempt real art. Handing each other awards for cartoons and pornography. Measuring your worth in weekends. Well, this is the theater. And you don't get to come in here and pretend you can write, direct, and act in your own propaganda piece without coming through me first. So break a leg.
Wow. What has to happen in a person's life for them to become a critic, anyway? What are you writing, another review? Is it any good? Is it? Is it bad? Did you even see this? Let me read it.
I will call the police.
Call the police. Let's read your review. Callow. Callow's a label. Just, lackluster. That's just the labels. Marginal, are you kidding me? It sounds like you need penicillin to clear that up. That's a label, too. These are just all labels. You just label everything. That's so fucking lazy. You're a lazy fucker. You're a lazy... You know what this is? Do you even know what that is? You don't. You know why? Because you can't see this thing if you don't know how to label it. You mistake all those little noises in your head for for true knowledge.
Are you finished?
No, I'm not finished. There's nothing in here about technique. There's nothing in here about structure. Nothing here about intention. It's just a bunch of crappy opinions backed up by even crappier comparisons. You write a couple of paragraphs. And you know what? None of this costs you fucking anything. You risk nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Well, I'm a fucking actor. This play cost me everything. So I'll tell you what. You take this fucking malicious, cowardly, shitty written review and you shove that right the fuck up your wrinkly, tight ass.
I love how Regan just gets back at her. I actually applauded very loudly in the theater when he did what he did and said what he said to her because and now this is going to sound ironic, I fucking hate critics. But yet here we are.
Hypocritical.
I know,
sure.
quite hypocritical. But, it is what it is. I've never really been one to read, the New York Times or any kind of review in anything about any movie that I've wanted to see.
Well, I think there's two reasons why you and I aren't huge fans of critics. First and foremost, because they got to a point where they were basically summarizing the whole entire movie, like we've discussed,
that
right?
Is very, yes, yeah.
Which we don't like. But secondly, there are a ton of really top-tier critics that their whole entire persona is to shit on movies.
Right,
Is to be hypercritical, to be the people who rarely like movies. And they just seem really goddamn miserable.
Right.
And you and I love movies to a point where we are very open to very different genres and, go in with reasonable expectations and not Oscar-worthy expectations every single time we go into the cinema, right? Like,
right, yeah.
We'll go into Fast X and be like, okay, well, this is a Fast and Furious movie. We're setting our expectations realistically, right? And so you and I really like a lot of different kinds of movies because we have really open minds and just love movies in general. Yeah. Whereas when I was growing up and there were more newspapers and critics were in them and that was the thing, there were so many critics that my mom would talk about, like, oh, well, he never likes a movie. And I'm like, well, then why the fuck are you a critic?
Yeah, why is he doing what he's doing?
Why are you spending your life watching movies that you hate? That sounds miserable.
Right. It really does. And how can you have a miserable time watching movies?
Exactly. So. Even when it's terrible, I still like
when it's terrible,
laugh about it and talk about it afterwards.
Hell yeah. That's one of the best parts about cinema, most definitely. So really, Regan is just being shit on.
Yes.
Really, just like Wayne Campbell says in Wayne's World, he's being shit on. That's it, shit on. And you know what really pisses me off? So, Regan is, and again, throughout all of this, he's trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter, just got out of rehab. They have a moment which got Emma Stone the Oscar nomination of her career, in my opinion. This was her first Oscar nomination. This movie was nominated for several other Oscars, and we'll get into that in a minute. But the moment where she starts going off on her dad about how he mocks Twitter, he doesn't have a Facebook page, he's trying to recreate this play that the only thing the rich white people are going to care about is we're going to have their coffee and tea afterward, and she just keeps going off on him.
Relax.
Relax. You can't do this to me.
To you?
Oh, shut up. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about you.
Now,
what else
don't
is
do
new?
the thing
The
where
thing where I'm making about me.
Look, I'm trying to do something that's important.
This is not important.
It's important to me. Okay? Maybe not to you or your cynical friends whose only ambition is to go viral, but to me, this is my career. This is my chance to finally do some work that actually means something.
It means something to who? You had a career, Dad, before the third comic book movie. Before people started to forget who was inside that bird costume. You were doing a play based on a book that was written 60 years ago for 1,000 rich old white people whose only real concern is going to be where they go to have their cake and coffee when it's over. Nobody gives a shit but you. And let's face it, Dad, you are not doing this for the sake of art. You are doing this because you want to feel relevant again. Well, guess what? There's an entire world out there where people fight to be relevant every single day, and you act like it doesn't exist. Things are happening in a place that you ignore. A place that, by the way, has already forgotten about you. I mean, who the fuck are you? You hate bloggers. You mock Twitter. You don't even have a Facebook page. You're the one who doesn't exist. You're doing this because you're scared to death, like the rest of us, that you don't matter. And you know what? You're right. You don't. It's not important, okay? You're not important. Get used to it.
I just every time I see this movie, my jaw is on the floor because she is she's so intense. And I relate to everything she says, and I relate to everything Regan's trying to do. Everybody in this movie just gives a fantastic performance.
They really, really do. That was my favorite scene of the whole entire movie, Emma Stone's argument with him.
Oh, yeah.
It was so fantastic. I loved everything she said, and yeah, I totally get it. And it's kind of this brutal truth that people don't want to talk about. And in reality, the way I look at it a lot of times, or at least I try to remind myself to look at it, is, you know, if everybody's going to forget about what you did in 50 years or 100 years, it's very freeing, because then who gives a shit what you do? You can do what you want and be passionate about something or make mistakes, and it's not the end of the world. And so I look at it in a really kind of silver lining kind of perspective, but God, it's like daggers to his heart with every word she says to him.
Oh, and I get like choked up when she's done, because like you can just see in her face, and she's like, oh my God, I went there and I fucked up. And it's again, her performance, and even for the rest of the movie, you know, it's not just that moment, but, you know, people are like, oh, well, they only got the nomination for that one scene. That's all it takes. You know, it literally is really one scene that you need. Now, in my opinion, she didn't deserve the nomination for La La Land when she sang about her aunt, because she can't sing. But she's still an enjoyable actress to watch. I won't not watch a movie because of her. I loved her in The Help. I actually very much enjoyed Cruella. I thought that was pretty good. Loved Easy A. Big fan of Superbad. And Crazy Stupid Love at the same time. I do like Emma Stone. So I just want to clear that up for everybody that knows that I hate La La Land. I don't hate her. I just hate that movie. And very, very fascinatingly, this movie, before they got into shooting, which took 23 days to shoot this movie, which is incredible.
I can't believe
$16.5 million budget. I know, right? 23 days. Throughout the entire production, especially since they did shoot this in sequence, there are takes that last between 15 to 16 pages of dialogue because the camera doesn't stop. And the DP and the camera operator said it really was the rehearsals a month before getting into actual production. They learned basically how to tango with everybody, you know, because everything is meticulously planned. They have to land on certain marks. The camera's coming around a corner. Emma Stone's got to walk. The camera's going with Emma Stone. Somebody's got to walk in front of the camera that has a piece of dialogue. Then we follow that person into their dressing room, which is Regan's dressing room, and then we're in there for 5-10 minutes, and then we come out of Regan's dressing room, and then we're back on the fucking stage, and that was all one motherfucking take, and you're just like, good God almighty. So with all of the planning of rehearsals, shooting this movie in sequence, post-production, just editing the film itself took 2 fucking weeks.
Wow, because they did all of that pre-work?
All of that pre-work.
So you're saying they rehearsed it in pre-production for about a month, and then they only shot the movie in 23 days.
Yeah.
The whole entire movie, from pre-production to post.
Just about 2 months.
Jesus.
Yeah, on a $16.5 million budget.
Wow, and they got all those big names too. That is
yeah, they did.
Extremely impressive.
I know it is. And Zach Galifianakis and Edward Norton actually had been wanting to work with Iñárritu for a long time, and they got to, which is great. I've seen a couple other Iñárritu films. I've seen Babel. I saw 21 Grams, and because of the length that they went in rehearsal and in shooting, Edward Norton and Michael Keaton actually started keeping a tally on the cast members to see who would flub the most during some of the takes, and they would go between 15, 20, 30 takes of some of these very long takes.
Fuck.
So that Steadicam operator probably lost a shit ton of weight carrying around that equipment. Focus puller was definitely on his feet all damn day, and so was Emmanuel Lubezki. Chivo, the DP of this film, for which he won an Oscar for. If you know him by name, we've mentioned him with Children of Men. He won an Oscar also for Gravity. And Zach Galifianakis made the least amount of mistakes. Emma Stone made the most amount of mistakes during the production. That's okay. She was still a little bit young. She actually did shoot this movie on a break from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So she was being Gwen Stacy in another world and coming into this one as a rehabilitated teenager.
And trying to remember all of your blocking and everything.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The Times Square sequence at night where Regan is walking around in his Tidy Whities was done after midnight. Majority of that crowd is paid background and some of the crew. During that sequence, in a break of shooting, one of the grips ended up bringing a buddy of his over and had Michael Keaton look at a Beetlejuice tattoo that this guy's friend had. And apparently the guy with the Beetlejuice tattoo did not know that he was actually showing Beetlejuice. So he left without actually getting to realize that he had been showing Michael Keaton a portrait of Michael Keaton on his body. That was pretty funny.
Love stories like that so
I know.
much.
So great. The soundtrack to this movie, which I personally think is fantastic, Antonio Sanchez wrote this score. It is jazz drums, and God, it's awesome. It really does get you in the gut at certain moments, too. I really respect the score. Unfortunately, it was disqualified to be considered for an Oscar because it didn't fit the criteria. So that was a little bit bullshit, in my opinion. Yeah, pretty lame.
Very. I'd be curious to dive into that and what exactly they mean.
Right.
That's unfortunate because I really liked the score as well, and it reminded me a little bit of John Baptiste's score from Soul.
Definitely, yeah, it had a lot of that feeling to it.
Jazz vibe.
Yeah, I loved it, and I like how they incorporate him on the drum set every now and then in the movie itself.
Yeah.
Like they walk by the kitchen of the theater, and he's in there just like rocking away, and it's just a great beat and just a really good soundtrack and full of just emotion too. And it's a drum set, but he really can convey some great tunes on just a couple of drums and a cymbal or two.
Mm-hmm.
The Birdman suit that we see every now and then in some of the inner monologue sequences was actually modeled off of the Michael Keaton mannequin from Batman. So congrats to Michael Keaton for however many decades later still being in fantastic fucking shape.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Wow. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
That's an achievement.
That's very, very awesome.
That's like fitting into your old high school clothes, you know?
Exactly. Yes. Another actress that auditioned for and was offered the role of Sam, which Emma Stone ended up taking, was Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie ended up turning it down to go do Focus with Will Smith instead. A couple other actresses that were in talks.
I can't picture Margot Robbie in that role.
I don't think I could either. I think she might look a little too old, if that makes sense. Not like, she's old, just too old to be the age group that Sam is supposed to be.
That, and also, yes, she played Harley Quinn, but Sam's character had a bit of this kind of grungy dirtbag element to it that I don't really see Margot Robbie pulling off. Like,
sure.
Yeah, granted, she was Harley Quinn, whatever, but that was really a caricature, and it wasn't in the real world. And so I just don't see Barbie pulling that off, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. I all I thought about it when you were talking just now is about how she was Harley Quinn, but it was a comic book, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't have that realism. And nothing against Margot Robbie. She's a very good actress.
Here. And she's a metalhead.
And she is a metalhead. But yeah, I think it went to the right young lady. A couple other actresses that were auditioned and were considered were Lily James, who I absolutely love. I could kind of see her doing it. I don't know. Maybe because I just like her a lot.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of hers.
Aw. And then Emilia Clarke, Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons, from Game of Thrones, was also considered to play Sam, which I think could have been a pretty good choice as well.
Totally agree, because I think because there's also this innocence quality to Sam's character that you really feel for her throughout the movie, because it turns out and you learn that her dad was a bit of a absentee father. He's not been really connected to his kid or very supportive, and she's kind of lost her way, and I could definitely see Emilia Clarke pulling that off.
I think so too. And it would be funny in a pseudo-universe to see this movie with Emilia Clarke and see her get nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, totally.
This movie was turned down as a submission at the Toronto Film Festival that year. Who the hell did that?
Was it because the budget was too big?
I don't know. I honestly, it's a good question.
Shitty.
I don't know a whole lot about the Toronto Film Festival. Needless to say, I'm sure they were very pissed once the Academy got, wind of how fantastic Birdman was. This movie would go on to be nominated for 9 Oscars that year. Now, that's a lot for a feature film like this.
For
definitely
$16
a
million?
Yeah, for 16 and a half with the cast and just the technical achievement of the movie itself. Definitely Oscar bait, if you will. I remember when I left the theater, I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to get a nominee for picture, cinematography, Michael Keaton, Emma Stone. If I'm being honest, I was telling all this to Amy, and lo and behold, several weeks later, we got the Oscar nominations, and the Oscar nominations were Best Picture, Achievement in Directing, Original Screenplay, Cinematography, Actor for Keaton, Supporting Actor for Edward Norton, Supporting Actress for Emma Stone, Sound Mixing, and Sound Editing. It would go on to win 4 of those 9, including Cinematography for Chivo, Original Screenplay, for Inarritu and his 3 non-WGA writers. Congratulations to them. Achievement in Directing for Inarritu, and I jumped out of my seat when Best Picture for Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance was read by Sean Penn, and he said something hilarious when he opened the envelope. He said, "Who gave this guy his green card? Best Picture is Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, directed by Alejandro Inarritu." And of course, he said that only because they worked together on 21 Grams with Naomi Watts. And they became very good friends.
Okay.
It wasn't a jab
like,
in some sort of
Sean Penn is kind
thing.
of a dick, so...
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when he won for Milk, right? He gets up there's like, "You homo, commie-loving freaks." It's like, dude, just be gracious. Just, like, be a little bit better about winning an Oscar for playing Harvey Milk, because that movie was fucking awesome.
Well, and it's a real-life person who was murdered because he was gay, like...
The movie's very good. It's intense. Josh Brolin's amazing. Franco's great. Alison Pill's great. That movie is just very well done, and Gus Van Sant did a great job.
Agreed.
Birdman is on the 1001 movies you need to see before you die list. There is one little Easter egg in this movie. I don't know, V, if you noticed it, but very in a wide shot later in the movie, there's a shot of MasterChef and Gordon Ramsay's face is on the side of a building. The reason why Gordon Ramsay showed up in this movie was because Gordon Ramsay's mother-in-law is a distant relative to Inarritu.
That is so random.
So fucking random. I know. That is Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. I absolutely love this movie. It was a $16.5 million budget, like I mentioned before. It came out on November 14th of 2014. I went and saw it on November 22nd of 2014. The U.S. gross for this $16.5 million budget movie was $42.3 million. Pretty good.
Nice.
Pretty good return. Worldwide return, $103.2 million fucking dollars. Awesome.
Jesus.
Just fucking awesome. And V, we're going to play our favorite game, the highest grossing film of 2014, franchise movie. There's one in the theaters right now, and I have refused to see it.
Well, hopefully I do better this week than last week.
Oh, last week's was so great. I was listening to the episode, and I'm going to be honest with you, I forgot that I said the Flintstones. So, like, right when I was like, Elizabeth Taylor, oh, yeah, it was the Flintstones, okay. Yeah, but this one, again, 2014, it is I think it's the 3rd or 4th one in this franchise, and now I think this one that just came out is like the 6th one. It's in theaters now. Should I give you a hint on who might have directed it?
Yes, please.
The director directed the masterpiece Armageddon.
Oh, it's a Transformers movie.
It is a Transformers movie, but which one?
Oh, Christ. There's
it's the
18 of them.
I know there is. It's the Age of Extinction, the one with all the Transformers dinosaurs, which I also did not see that Transformers
I only saw the first one. I'm proud to say that.
Yes, of course.
But I'm also stoked I guessed it.
Yeah, so that was the highest grossing movie of 2014. The second highest grossing movie was another franchise film, and the sixth, actually, I guess technically, no, yeah, it would be the sixth because there were only 3 in the Fellowship series. The Battle of the Five Armies, The Hobbit. I never did see any of the Hobbit movies.
Because they milked it for all it's worth by turning a single book into 3 movies.
3 movies they didn't need
gross.
to do. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. The third highest grossing film, V, actually, and it is a franchise, but it's the first one, and the third one is in theaters now.
Oh my god. It's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Volume 1, yes indeed.
You know what? It's only because we've been doing this for a year that I was able to follow what you just said.
I know, isn't that great? I wonder how many people actually will be able to follow that one. Number 4 highest grossing film, Disney movie starring Angelina Jolie, Elle Fanning, and Charlotte Copley, Maleficent.
Love this movie.
Fucking awesome, awesome movie. Number 6 highest grossing film, I love this movie. It's an X-Men movie, Days of Future Past. Fucking
so
awesome
fucking
ass
good.
movie. Such a badass time travel movie. And I knew you'd like that one because you like the time travel stuff. Like me.
Certainly do. I also loved First Class.
Oh, yeah.
How could they take such a strong opening of those first 2 movies and completely shit the bed with Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix?
Oh, I know.
Oh, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, Dark Phoenix was not very good.
It
I had
sucked.
fun with Apocalypse, but I know a lot of people didn't, so I'll just keep that quiet.
Good call.
The number 7th highest grossing film is another franchise movie. There aren't any one of these in theaters anymore, but this is the second one of 3, but he's also in all of the ensemble movies.
This would be 2014. The second
Yes.
one is...
Yes, the most badass of the 3.
That's Winter Soldier.
That is Captain America
Yeah.
Winter Soldier. Fucking killer-ass movie.
Mhm.
I love that one. Number 10 highest-grossing film, one of my favorite films of all time with Matthew McConaughey, directed by Christopher Nolan, Interstellar. Number 11, Big Hero 6. Number 14, The Resurgence of Godzilla with Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson. I love that Godzilla. I also love Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I love Godzilla vs. Kong and Kong Skull Island. I love them all. I love the monster movies. It's so much fun.
I actually haven't ever seen a Godzilla movie.
Oh my gosh, when you're here next time, we got a monster movie.
All right, I'll come over for a
So
monster
much
movie, but
fun.
only
Yes.
if we also watch Kong Skull Island, because I love that movie.
Hell yeah. I love Kong Skull Island. It's so hysterically ridiculous.
John C. Reilly is so good in that film.
Hell yeah. John Goodman too. Everybody.
Everybody's
It's
great in
just
that
a great,
film.
great
Yeah.
movie. Number 18 highest grossing movie starring Scarlett Johansson, written and directed by Luc Besson, Lucy. I think that movie's a lot of fun. If you've never seen Lucy, definitely give it a shot. It's about a woman that kind of becomes superhuman. And
We only use 10% of our brains.
Yeah,
So
and then she can use all of it.
It's not... in reality, we use all of our brains, right? It's a common urban legend that we only use 10% of our brains. We use all
that
of our...
right?
I mean, some of us use more of our brains than others. That is
Yes.
true.
I would
we
agree.
don't use only 10% of our brains.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's something new for me to know now.
Now you're using 11% of yours.
I'm going a little bit higher right now. The number 20 highest grossing film of 2014 is a Tom Cruise feature film that we have discussed on this podcast before. V, it was a choice of yours.
Oh, is it Edge of Tomorrow?
It is Edge of Tomorrow.
Fuck yeah.
Good movie as well. Number 23 was Darren Aronofsky, Jennifer Connelly, Russell Crowe in Noah, based on Noah's Ark, which is a good movie, but not a good movie. You know, it is what it is. Number 26, highest grossing film of 2014, the comedy sequel with Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, 22 Jump Street, which I think is also really fucking funny.
It
They
is.
both are very, very entertaining. The number 31 highest grossing film, Seth Rogen, Rose Byrne, and Zac Efron in Neighbors, which I just rewatched again a few weeks ago, and that movie still is hysterical.
So good. I love Rose Byrne.
Oh yeah, and I got to tell you, I love me some fucking Efron. I think the guy he's awesome. I would love to hang out with him sometime. Number 41, highest grossing film of 2014, directed by David Ayer, starring Shia LaBeouf and Brad Pitt in Fury. One hell of a badass World War II movie.
Third favorite war movie.
Oh wow, yeah, it's a badass movie.
It is so good.
Number 73, scratching the top 100 highest grossing film of 2014, Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And number 89, scratching the top 100 highest grossing film of 2014, another franchise movie of which the fourth one just came out on 4K, and you and I both saw it in the theater, starring Keanu Reeves. John Wick. That is the year of 2014, and my pick for this week of Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. It is on HBO Max now. I have my Blu-ray copy. I love it. Watch it, love it, watch all the behind the scenes because it is just truly mind-boggling how they did this movie in 23 fucking days.
That is so nuts.
Hells yeah, it is.
John Wick was only 86th highest grossing. That is
89.
fucking bullshit.
I know. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it at home, and of course, halfway through, I'm like, I should have seen this in fucking theaters.
That's true.
And that's why I went and saw the fourth one in theaters and had a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 2014 was a really good year for movies.
It absolutely was. Yeah, it really, really was.
I mean, granted, after you gave me that list, I'm super pissed that Transformers was highest grossing of the year. That's so dumb. But some others on the list are certainly gems that I'm a big fan of.
Absolutely. Yes, and some we've discussed here. And actually, a few of them are even on both of our lists and will be discussed in the future.
That's also true.
So, V, I'm curious, would you watch Easy A with your grandma?
No.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's nothing in it that would make me uncomfortable watching it with anybody in my family. In fact, my sister really loves this movie. I would watch it with my parents, but it's just not a genre up her alley, so that's the only reason I wouldn't watch it with her.
I gotcha.
And would you watch Birdman with your grandma?
Yeah, I actually would. I watched about half of it with my grandmother at one point, and she
Nice.
enjoyed it, but we ended up having to turn it off because dinner was ready.
Oh, that's too bad you weren't able to ever resume it.
It's all good. She's watched it with me at this point.
There you go.
So thank you guys very much for joining us here on episode 63 of Movies You Miss Podcast. Please do rate, review, subscribe. Give us all the loving you can. A sticker is in it for you if you do. And before we close out here at Movies You Miss Podcast, next week we're going to be jumping into 2 films directed by the same director, which I've actually mentioned before in a live-action and stop-motion picture of mine. V, you want to talk about what you're going to be discussing next week?
Yes, I picked the stop-motion animation film James and the Giant Peach.
Hell yeah. I like that movie quite a bit.
And you can watch it if you have a Disney Plus subscription.
Oh, fantastic. I think I will be watching my Blu-ray copy, which I got my wife, because my wife is a big fan of your pick this week, V.
Yay.
I'm going to be choosing another stop-motion animated feature film entitled Coraline. If you would like to watch it, audience, it is on HBO Max. I will be watching my brand new 4K Steelbox edition, and I cannot wait to discuss Coraline because that is one hell of a movie.
And I've never seen it.
I know. I can't wait to see what you think. That about wraps us up here at Movies You Miss Podcast at episode 64. And as always, we like to sign off with film is a form of art, and in all art, all opinions are valid, except if you think.
Teen comedies are no longer relevant nor hold up if you're over 30.
Short from 40.
There you go.
No, you know what? That's true, because they still are hilarious, and episode 69's coming up, and just you wait, audience.
Yes, there'll be some good raunchy teen comedies in that episode, that's for sure.
Indeed. Well, cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.